Hello friends, this is Worm, and it's Monday, which means it's time for another episode of Exotic Recrafting, the series where we take a look at exotics and that are weak, underused, or straight up bad inside Destiny 2 and talk about how we can potentially make them better. And today we are breaking the mold. We are doing an exotic armor piece as opposed to what we've done historically, which is exotic weapons. Because I think a lot of exotic armor pieces need some reworks, and this is the perfect time to talk about them, right? But with that being said, we're going to talk about Mask of Bakris today. And the reason why I chose Mask of Bakris to talk about is because Bungie is working on some type of change to Mask of Bakris. And personally, I really love this exotic, but it just feels really weak inside of PvE. And of course, primarily PvE is what we're going to be talking about in this video, although we will consider PvP, which will make more sense as we go on. But let's talk about what Mask of Bakris does first of all. So when you have a stasis super equipped, it replaces your dodge ability with a short range teleport. Pretty cool. Then when you come out of that teleport, you have a ×4 stasis and arc weapon surge that lasts for 10 seconds. Now, the balancing factor of this is while that stasis and arc surge are active, your dodge ability does not cool down. So it has a cooldown inhibitor. So it's going to stay empty for 10 seconds. Then once that 10-second timer is up, then it's going to start recharging, meaning that even if you have max mobility and a marksman's dodge equipped, you're looking at a 26, if I'm not mistaken, 26-second dodge cooldown, which is pretty long. And I think a lot of people don't like it for that reason. And one of the reasons why we don't see it used that much is because it has a really weird balancing factor. It is on one hand a movement-based exotic, on the other hand it's a utility exotic, and because it tries to be both, there has to be a balancing factor, and that balancing factor means that you can't use it as much as you want to. That's one of the reasons why I rarely use it, even though I love it. So let's talk about how we can fix that. So first of all, let's talk about the utility aspect, because there's really only one change I have for the utility aspect, and that is allow players to use it on arc as well as stasis, right? So currently we can use it on stasis subclass and we can use it on prismatic, but if we did this, we would also allow it to be used on arc. It kind of just makes sense. Like, it is a fallen themed exotic. Fallen, have lots of arc stuff, plus it gives you an arc weapon surge. It just makes sense to allow players to use it on arc. But with that one out of the way, I want to talk about the movement side of things, because the movements, the movement exotic is really where the identity of the exotic lives. So with that being said, I want to talk about removing that cooldown. Now, obviously, at a base level, Bungie could just flat out remove the inhibitor, right? So when you have your dodge, when you do your dodge, it immediately starts cooling down. You got your ×10 stasis and arc weapon surge, and then if you have tier 10 mobility, you get it back in 16 seconds or whatever it is. I don't know exactly the timer, but it's somewhere around there. So you get it back in 16 seconds with marksman's dodge also, which is pretty good. However, I think that would be really problematic, because if you are running tier 10 mobility and you do have a marksman's dodge equipped, you have 16 seconds to get your dodge back. 10 of those 16 seconds is going to be giving you basically 25% damage to potentially all your weapons, right? You have stasis, for example, stasis primary, arc special, and an arc heavy or a stasis heavy. Like, you have a 25% damage boost to all your weapons for 10 seconds out of the 16 seconds it takes to get your dodge back. That's a long time. That's like 60% of the time. So basically, in any given activity, you could have 60% uptime on 25% damage boost, which is crazy, because that's the same as a Well of Radiance. That's the same as Weapons of Light. Like, that's a huge damage boost for literally just using your class ability. And again, you could have it up for a tremendous amount of time. So I think that to balance that out, if we wanted to, just remove the cooldown, I think that you would also have to reduce the actual surge that you get, maybe down to just a ×2. ×2, I believe, is 15%, I think. It's 15%. So you would go from having a 25% damage boost to now just a 15% damage boost. But again, you could have that 15% damage boost basically 60% of any activity you're doing, which is pretty substantial. Like, that's nothing to scoff at, especially, we have things like Frenzy in the game, which is already 15% that you could have basically at all times. So I don't think that it's too crazy to give players a 15% damage boost. Now, the other balancing factor I would have to this is give the dodge ability a base cooldown of the marksman's dodge. And we see Bungie do this with things like Threaded Spectre and things like Ascension. You know, they have a base cooldown that is longer than a marksman's dodge, just as a balancing factor. You can do the same thing here. So that light shift takes 18 or 20 seconds to come back at base tier 10 mobility, as opposed to 16 seconds at tier 10 mobility. But that would be kind of one of the changes, you know, if you wanted to keep both the movements and the utility as part of the picture. Now, the other change that you can have is just full on build into a movement exotic. Okay, remove the surge mods altogether. They no longer need to be in place. And of course, you don't have to have that defaulted cooldown to, you know, a gambler's dodge. Sorry, you could have marksman's dodge, tier 10 mobility, get it back in 16 seconds. Now, one thing I would add to this, because again, it is a movement exotic, I would also add the ability to have a second dodge, right? So you have 2 dodges, kind of like 6 Coyote, but it only works if you have a stasis super equipped, and it gives you 2 of those light shifts. That would be so cool. That'd be so fun, because you would get, you know, you'd have the ability to move around the, you know, an arena or a map with that ability. Like, that's what it is. Like, it's a movement exotic. Now, the one problem I can see happening with this is, of course, Threaded Spectre. You know, you'd have 2 Threaded Spectres in PvP plus the ability to, like, just teleport out of the way. That sounds problematic. I would say the change I would make, if you're going to do this, Bungie, would be to override or be overridden by Threaded Spectre. So when you have Threaded Spectre equipped, you're either going to do the light shift or you're going to leave the Spectre, not both. That's a really important balancing aspect. But those are the ideas for just some changes. Now I want to talk about a full potential rework to this exotic that I think could be really, really fun. So basically, give Mask of Bakris, when you have it equipped, you have a really, really fast cooldown to your dodge ability. I'm talking like 1 second, maybe a half second cooldown, right? So you basically can instantly get your dodge back. If you dodge and you die immediately after you do your dodge, when you spawn back in, you have it ready to go by the time your feet hit the ground. However, there is that light shift lockout mechanic is still present. So what this effectively would do is it would make your dodge 10 seconds. Okay, but you can only use it once every 10 seconds. Okay, you couldn't have, you couldn't have 6 Coyotes, so you couldn't have 2 of them. It gives you more ability to use this exotic, because all it's doing is just giving you a change to your, how you're moving around the map. But it comes back in 10 seconds, which I think that would be really awesome. Plus, we don't have any exotics that just give you ability energy whenever you die or when you spawn back in from death. And I think Mask of Bakris could be one of those where I think it'd be okay. You die, you spawn back in, you instantly have your dodge ability back. You can go out there, you can use it. And if you wanted to balance it, if it was, concerning, you could balance it so that whenever you come out of that light shift, your weapon your weapon ready speed is a tiny bit slower. I don't think that's necessary. I think that just having that light shift so that you could really only use it once every 10 seconds, like hard 10 seconds, would be an idea. And again, when I say the lockout, I say the lockout's very important because you don't want to have like strategist weapons that, you don't want to give it a 10-second cooldown that could be shortened by things like strategist, classy contender, and stuff like that. Like, it is a hard 10 seconds. Like, that is what your cooldown is. Like, light shift activates for 10 seconds. Then when that 10 seconds timer's up, your dodge is back and ready to go. But with that being said, those are my ideas for what we could do to Mask of Bakris. Again, we're seeing a change come to it at some point in the future, probably with the drop of next episode. So I'm very excited to see what Bungie's got in store for us. Hopefully they will, hopefully they'll do some, or if not all of these changes, maybe not all of them together, but some of these changes. But yeah, with that being said, I want to hear your thoughts on Mask of Bakris. How would you personally want to see the exotic change so that it could be more useful inside PvE activity, or maybe not more useful, but just used more inside PvE activities? Tell me what you think about my thoughts, all that good stuff. And do me a favor, like the video, helps the channel out a lot. Subscribe for more daily Destiny content, conversations, debates, all that good stuff. And do me one more favor, watch the videos you see here on the end screen, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you'll like them. Guys, I'll see y'all next time. Bye for now.